Unquestionable, you are our God. Unquestionable, you are our God. Unquestionable, 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 you are our God. Good morning, everyone. On Destiny Books platform, today we will be talking about the unquestionable and unique character of God and how we as humans will respond to God when terrible things happen or when we are faced with all sorts of challenges. Today we'll be talking about a man named Job, who Job was, what Job did, what God did, and what the enemy did. And today we will be reading from the book of Job, chapter 1, from the Message. Now, Job was a man devoted to God. Job was a man who lived in Uz. He was honest inside and out, a man of his word, who was totally devoted to God, and he hated evil with a passion. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He was also very wealthy, 7,000 head of sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 teams of oxen, 500 donkeys, and a huge staff of servants, the most influential man in all the East. So we now know that Job was a very wealthy and influential man. What was Job's character like? Let's go on to read. His sons used to take turns hosting parties in their homes, always inviting their 3 sisters to join them in their merrymaking. When the parties were over, Job would get up early in the morning and sacrifice a burnt offering for each of his children, thinking maybe one of them sinned by defying God inwardly. Job made a habit of this sacrificial atonement just in case his children sinned. So we now understand that uh, one of the characteristics of Job was to love his children and fear the Lord. He loved his children and he feared God. So he did all these sacrifices on behalf of his children because of the fear of God. He wanted God to protect his children. So what happened? What did God do? And what did the enemy do? Let's read on. So one day, when the angels came to report to God, Satan, who was the designated accuser, came along with them. God singled out Satan and said, "What have you been up to?" Satan answered God, "Going here and there, checking things out on earth." God said to Satan, "Have you noticed my friend Job? There is no one quite like him, honest and true to his word, totally devoted to God and hating evil." And you can see here one of the unique and unquestionable characteristics of God is God pointing you out to the enemy, to say, "This is my child, this is somebody that I love, this is my friend who acknowledges me, who relies on me, who obeys my command." So that is one a unique, unquestionable character of God. God can tell your enemy, "Can you check my daughter out? Can you check my son out?" So let's go on and see what happened. So Satan retorted, "So do you think Job does all that out of sheer goodness of his heart? Why, no one ever had it so good. You pamper him like a pet, make sure nothing bad ever happens to him or his family or his possession. Bless everything he does. He can't lose." This is the character of the enemy and the Satan here. The enemy can actually question God and say, "Oh, why do you say to me that this lady is a child of God? Or why do you say this man is so devoted to me? Is it not because you blessed this person with children? Is it not because you blessed this person with a lot of possession? Is it not because this person has got a title, is wealthy and so influential? The enemy can question that. The enemy can say to God, why don't you take all of these things away from this person? Let's see whether this person will actually still love you. Let's go on to see what happened. So God replied, we will see. Go ahead. Do what you want with all that is, or with all that is. Just don't hurt him. Then Satan left the presence of God. So one unquestionable character of God is that God can actually give the enemy permission to do something. God can give the enemy the permission to take things away from you, to take your possession, to take your title, to take your children, to take everything that belongs to you. So are you wondering, are you in a place of work where somebody just wants to rip you off your title because you're dedicated to God? Or are you in a company where you were blessed with a car and they think, oh, is it because you're so dedicated? Why don't we steal that car? God can give the enemy permission to do anything with you, to test your faith and to actually show the power of God, to actually show that despite everything, will this person still rely on me, or will this person curse me and turn away from me? Let's go on and see what happened. So, sometime later, while Job's children were having one of their parties at the home of the oldest son, a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the donkeys grazing in the field next to us when Sabians attacked. They stole the animals and killed the field hands. I am the only one to get out alive and tell you what happened. Let's go on to see what happened. While he was still talking, another messenger arrived and said, bolts of lightning struck the sheep and the shepherds and fried them, burned them to crisp. I am the only one to get out alive and tell you what happened. While he was still talking, another messenger arrived and said, Chaldeans coming from 3 directions raided the camels and massacred the camel drivers. I am the only one to get out alive and tell you what happened. And while he was still talking, another messenger arrived and said, your children were having a party at the home of the oldest brother when a tornado swept in off the desert and struck the house. It collapsed on the young people and they died. I am the only one to get out alive and tell you what happened. So you see, sometimes someone who is really, really dedicated to God, a friend of God, somebody who obeys the command of God, something can just happen to that person. Not only one, a series of terrible things, from losing a job, losing a car, losing a relationship, somebody so loved dying. A whole lot of things can happen. Let's not judge that person. Let us try to understand the character or the characters of God and what the enemy can do, so that next time we will be able to fight the enemy. Let's see what happened. So Job got to his feet, ripped his robe, shaved his head, then fell to the ground and worshipped. Naked I came from my mother's womb. Naked I will return to the womb of the heart. God gives, God takes. God's name be ever blessed. Not once through all this did Job sin. Not once did he blame God. In summary, Job was a wealthy man, he was an influential man, and one of his characters is to make sacrifices on behalf of his children, which he really dearly loved because of the fear of God. He did not want anything to happen to them. But one day, God told the enemy, have you considered my friend Job? He is a very faithful and dedicated man. And then the Satan said to him, he's got the possession, you have pampered him, you love him so much. You reap him of all of these things, and you will see whether he will still be your friend or whether he will turn away from you. And one of the unquestionable characters of God was to give the enemy permission to hurt or to take away Job's possession, even his children. So don't be alarmed when you're faced with some terrible things. Know that your faith is being tested. So what happened? Despite Job losing all his belongings, his possession, his animals, his servants, even his children died, he still had the courage. He still had that fear in God. He said, naked I came from my mother's womb, naked I will return to the womb of the head. God gives and God takes. And not once, through all these terrible things did Job sin, not once did he blame God. I'm just encouraging you today, whatever you're facing, that challenge, that terrible thing, I want you to acknowledge God. And the reason why you must acknowledge God in everything is because that is the will of God. If you look at the book of Thessalonians 1, chapter 5, verse 18, it says, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. So that means you're not to acknowledge God or give thanks to God only when you have a new car, when you have a new home, you've been promoted at work, you found love. When things go wrong, when at work, they demote you for a reason, or when you lose your car, you're involved in an accident, name it, you have to give thanks to God even in that situation. It might seem so difficult. I encourage you to give thanks to God in all things, and you will see what God will do. We are still on this series of understanding the characters of God and the characters of human beings, how we respond to bad things and how we respond to the challenges that we face. In the next episode, we will continue to see what happened to Job. Did he eventually turn away from God, or did he keep faith and was strong in God? We will find out in the next episode. Be blessed.